It might be a little cold on the water today, but we're headed to Nantucket. Let's go. Hey everybody, it's Jenny from WeNeedaVacation.com. Welcome to EsCape TV, where each episode we get you back to the Cape and Islands. As I mentioned earlier, we're getting back to Nantucket. Most people think of Nantucket as a place to see and be seen, but the homes there are all a little bit different. Our Tyler...
I'll be the first to admit, having never been to Nantucket before, I honestly thought there would be nothing but mansions on the island. But during my first trip there, I quickly found that definitely wasn't the case. I was there to film as many homes throughout the Nantucket town area as possible, and honestly, no two homes were alike. I started in a cute 3-bedroom home that was perfectly titled Hideaway. While it may have been tucked off the street, this home had plenty of natural light. From there, it was on to a beach cottage that had one of the coolest stories ever. The home was originally a scallop shucker's shack, formerly owned by descendants of President John Quincy Adams. And that vintage spiral staircase was actually from a shipwreck. The history in the home was incredible, and the views weren't too bad either. I was able to walk up the street to the next home, which, like the last, also wasn't short on history. The large 5-bedroom house had been built in the 1820s and had been passed down from generation to generation. Just a few blocks away was a charming 3-bedroom 1830 farmhouse that had been renovated with easy Nantucket style. The roses on the side just scream vintage Nantucket. The last house I was able to step inside was completely different from all the rest. It had been renovated to not only look amazing, but to be completely accessible to anyone with disabilities. When all was said and done, there was one thing all the homeowners had in common. They all took great pride in their homes and in the island.
Even though I do live here on the Cape, I don't make it out to the Nantucket that often. I did this past summer and I had a blast. Here's a look at my trip. Even though I was born and raised on Cape Cod, I hadn't been back to the island of Nantucket since I was a teenager. When Tyler invited me to join him to shoot some properties there, I jumped at the chance. I felt giddy with excitement about reuniting with the Gray Lady, as the tiny island is known. It was a gorgeous sunny day as we rounded Brant Point and entered Nantucket Harbor. When we got off the ferry, we joined the bustling crowd making their way into town. Like most visitors to the island, we had to walk almost everywhere, but that made the day all the more enjoyable. We had the sun on our faces, sea breeze in our hair, and the ever-present scent of salt air. What more could we ask for? The trip turned out to be exactly what you think it might be. Walking cobblestone streets lined with shops and vintage cars, photographing quintessential rose-covered houses while speaking with colorful homeowners, and enjoying the many gorgeous beaches. Tyler and I parted midday, and I toured the town a bit on my own. I enjoyed a delicious light lunch at the chic Met on Main. Then I trekked out to Jetty's Beach to snap some photos. With so much to see and to do, keeping track of the time is not an easy thing to do on this beautiful island. But I was able to make it back to the ferry with enough time to fit in a little shopping. The same cannot be said for Tyler, Mr. Last Minute Charlie, who made it to the ferry with only 2 minutes to spare. All in all, it was a thoroughly enjoyable day. Beauty, adventure, and serenity. All of it can be found on the tiny island of Nantucket, a magical world all its own, 30 miles out from the mainland. All this winter weather makes me want to relive that day over and over again. As with every episode, we like to end with a quote from you. Here's what someone had to say about that magical island.
Judith shares, "What do I love most about Nantucket? Approaching the Gray Lady of the Sea and seeing Brant Point light, knowing that I have arrived in this enchanting place. The quaint streets lined with bookstores, art, and lovely shops. The clock, vendors selling flowers, nice places to eat, the whaling museum, beaches, and very friendly people. Nantucket gives me a feeling that I belong. I always throw pennies overboard when leaving, assuring that I will return."
Very well said.
Well, that'll do it for this episode. We'll see you next time.